Well, all right. Welcome, everybody, to Breaching the Boardroom. I am your host, David Morrow, and in the studio today is Gretchen Burns, CPA, CCIFP, and we'll learn what those all mean in just a second, who's got over 3 decades in diverse financial experience in various industries, from construction to financial institutions. Currently CFO at Prus Construction, has experience working for city and government contractors as well as general contractors. Gretchen, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. It's nice to
So
be here.
great. Well, tell us about your current role, and
Currently,
and tell us about the organization that you're with.
I'm currently the CFO for Prus Construction, and Prus Construction is a Cincinnati-based company that does a lot of concrete, and you see their trucks all over Cincinnati doing street work and park
Yep.
work and lots of those kind of things. It's a family-owned business. The current owner is fifth generation, and they've been around
Fifth
since eight.
generation. Fifth.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, they've been around since 1888.
That's
So
interesting.
a lot of history with this company, and a real nice family feel to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you, in the CCIFP, I assume that is a certification for financial planning?
Yes. Certificate. Let me see if I can remember it correctly, but Institute of,
Yes, financial planners.
yeah, no, I gotta look. It is the,
I'm making you look up the
you're making me look.
acronym. I apologize.
It's up here. I'm sorry, but it's a, certificate for construction
Oh,
and finance, and it just kind of showing that you have some expertise in construction finance. Um, I did took the exam a couple years back, and it's just kind of a nice thing to have,
well,
when you're
especially
dealing
in your
with the
field.
banks.
Yeah, yeah,
Then you've got somebody who, you have somebody who has some depth in the financial area.
absolutely. Well, in the CPA is that not all people in accounting are CPAs. That CPA exam um,
Hmm.
is I've got buddies. I went and I had passed the bar, couple bars, and I thought those were hard, very hard.
Yeah.
And my buddy who did those with me was also a CPA. He goes, "This was not as hard as the CPA exam," and I'm like, "That is
Oh.
why I took math for rocks, and why you're getting the CPA, and I'm just doing this." Like that is
Yeah.
really hard.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took
So,
the CPA back in 1993, I think it was.
oh, phenomenal.
And I took
Yeah.
it back when it was like an all day event, sitting in a
Yep.
large room in
That's when he
Chicago.
took it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
actually when we were doing that. So yeah, that would have been right around the same time.
Yeah. And it was
Yeah.
all at once. So you could do it all in one sitting versus now I think they do it a section at a time.
Okay. So let me ask you, why? Like, why? What drove you into finance versus business administration or MBA stuff or things like that?
Well, I've always loved math. So
Uh,
growing up and going to college, my first year of college, I was a math major. And
really?
I thought, well, I don't really like the theoretical math, but I like the
Yeah.
practical math. And that's when I
Right.
took some accounting courses and thought, well, this is for me.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I am not of that cloth at all. That's really interesting. Like I was graduating and I'm like, oh, I need a math credit. Oh man, and then I had to
Yeah,
go like cram that stuff in senior year. Um,
yeah.
so
Calculus
so
was kind of my undoing. It was too much theory for me,
it
not
is a
enough
lot of theory.
practical.
Yeah, that's all painful to me.
Yeah.
um, so 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 Prus, how do you pronounce it? Is it It's Prus Construction, right?
Bruce, yes.
Prus. Okay, and fifth generation.
Yes.
That's phenomenal. Like statistically, that's almost unheard of, right? Like oftentimes they fail in the second or third generation, but usually when they can make it past that hump, they continue on, and that's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, so do you guys engage in the construction work for a lot of municipalities, state? How do you guys go to market?
We do both of those. Do a lot of work for the city of Cincinnati, and we
Oh,
do some ODOT projects,
oh,
do
okay.
some bridges and things like that for them. And then we have private as well. So there's some of the other contractors that are working on some bigger, like
You
the FC
like
Cincinnati
office
Stadium.
parks or
Yeah.
stadiums or whatever.
Yeah, and then they'll engage us to come in and do some decorative concrete or just to pour
Oh,
sidewalks and curbs, things like around the outside of whatever they're building.
wow. And how many employees do you guys have? I imagine
We're
you've ebbed and flowed over the decades.
yeah, we're at the highest that we've been, and we're about
Oh,
275 right now.
wow, it's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's that's phenomenal. And do you guys expand outside the Cincinnati area or the region?
not outside the region. I mean, we
Okay.
do some things in Kentucky, and we've got
Okay.
a
Yeah, right
project,
across the river. Yeah.
yeah, project in Indiana right now.
Mm.
And then we do go up to Dayton and do some work at the Wright Pat Air Force Base.
Ah, okay.
So, and then we're also doing a few rest areas that are kind of outside of our usual area.
Ah, phenomenal. Do you guys and now you're doing stuff for the Air Force Base. Do you have to be, does CMMC, does the new federal contract requirements for compliance, does that apply to you guys at all
I
or
am
no?
not sure about that.
Okay.
I know
Yeah, I was
that
just curious.
people working up there have to have like a special clearance or something to be on
Ah, okay.
the
Yeah.
base, but I'm not sure what those rules are.
Yeah. You may not have to unless you have to hold or have access to, um, you know, confidential, unclassified information. So if you're not holding that data, you probably don't have to uh, be CMMC certified, but you never know.
Yeah, I wouldn't think we would have any data like that. We're
Yeah.
out there paving runways and things, so
Hmm.
um, that's more up our line than having any kind of documents from them.
Sure. Makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
So throughout your career, and I understand you took some time off midway to raise a family, which is phenomenal. Um, you know, guys have it easy. We always have, but we gripe and we make it seem like we have the hardest jobs in the world. Um, but the along the way, did you have, because you worked in a couple different industries, a couple different organizations, um, what have you found in terms of gaining insight from leaders that you admired? Like, did you have a mentor? Were there any strong leaders that you kind of wanted to emulate? Anything like that?
I don't think there's a single person, but I
Hmm.
feel like everybody that I've worked for over the years has taught me something. So,
Sure.
I mean, some leaders are great, some are not so great, but either way, you still come away learning something from that experience. And
Yeah.
kind of feel like everybody really has something you can learn from, or teach you.
Yeah,
So,
100%. Right. They may not be the best employer at the moment, right? Or the best manager for you or the way they might treat people. But in general, they're doing something well and there's something to learn from.
mhm. Yeah, there's something to learn from, and then there's things you can learn about yourself in those situations too. You
How
know, I
so? Yeah, like how so?
well, your confidence when you're working for someone that's kind of difficult, you kind of learn, or I did, or kind of developing confidence, and that um, I can stand up for myself and things like that that are like in you, but you don't really, get to see those things as much. But I
It's a
think when you're
really
put
good
into a
point.
situation where you're kind of the underdog or whatever, and those things kind of come out, and you realize you can do more than you thought you could.
Yeah, it's a really good point, especially if you're tasked with a difficult employer and you can and they might be doing something a certain way or questioning why you're doing something a certain way. And it makes you kind of hunker down and make your business case, right? It makes you stand up for yourself and say, here's why doing it this way. Here's why we should be doing it this way. And it articulates that. Um,
Yeah, I
that
think so. And you know, I remember a time in my auditing days sitting with someone trying to explain to him how something was incorrect on the books, and I had confidence in my answer and knew what was doing, and he was very difficult. But I kind of just hung in there with him, even though I was being difficult, and he eventually saw what I was talking about and actually thanked me for sticking in there with him, even though he knew he was being kind of grumpy. You know,
yeah.
so
Yeah, and that's a valid point because we don't know what's going on with other people, right?
that's
We
right.
don't know if it's displaced grumpiness,
Hmm.
right? It's
Right.
like when somebody cuts in front of me in traffic, I just let them in. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with them, you know. There's no reason to like debate that because I'm still going to make it to where I need to be on time anyway. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Uh, you know, and then you stuck with it to really um, get him to see the point you were trying to make or the reasons why it needs to be done a certain way.
Hmm.
It's an opportunity to teach a little, isn't it?
Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. But I think it's very true what you said. You don't know what's going on in somebody else's head at that moment. Might
Right.
be, perfectly happy individual, but somebody cut them off that morning and now they're a little grumpy at you.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily their character, but things
Right.
happen sometimes.
Right. And we all immediately try. We always take things personally. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, they're yelling at me or they're grumpy toward me. And it's like, not necessarily. It
Right.
might just be grumpy toward the process. They don't like
Right.
being audited. They don't like being second questioned because of maybe the way they were raised. Like, we don't know. Right. And
Right.
so pausing and just taking the time to explain the context of why you're asking them to do something, it's really good. Any lessons you learned as a mom that you see bleeding over or analogous to managing a team?
Um, well, maybe just, listening. Um,
Mm,
Sometimes, like when dealing with little kids, especially, they have something they're trying to tell you, but they might not be articulating it very well. So you kind of learn to listen hard and try to figure out what they're doing. And then I feel like that kind of translates too into work life and not the same thing. They're not little kids, but, sometimes,
in many ways, they are, though.
yeah.
In many ways, coworkers are just like kids, right?
Yes. But sometimes I mean, all the time, I guess, they have a different perspective. And so
Right.
what they're trying to tell you, you're hearing it through your own ears and your own perspective. You're not hearing it through theirs. And so sometimes I feel like you got to listen a little better, to try and hear what they're really trying to tell you.
Yeah. A lot of thought leaders, like when you think of the Gary V's and the Simon Sinek's out there that are putting out a lot of content, and there's hundreds of others, but they always talk about really strong leaders. One of the best lessons to learn is to learn how to listen, listening to understand, not
Hmm.
just listening to reply. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that can be like when you're nervous. I feel like you can kind of listen to reply, But when you're dealing with people day to day, it's not a nervous situation. You're just talking about things and just listening well.
One of the holy grails I'm in search of is how to motivate teams and maintain positive culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, in an ideal world, everybody wants to be a leader where everybody likes them and you're giving everybody what they need and you're supporting them. But the problem is if something doesn't get done on time or that report, the deadline is missed, at some point there has to be not the hammer come down, but at
Mm-hmm.
some point there has to be execution by the team members. Like they got to get stuff done in a
Yes.
timely manner. And so, how do we like? Have you like how have you addressed that? Like how have you done that without being a jerk to them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just saying like, look, this has got to get done. Like, have you found methods like that have worked?
Um, Communication first, letting them know that there is a deadline that has to be met, and this is what it is, so that that's clear. I think another thing that helps a lot are checklists.
Yeah,
So having a list of the things that you need to get done for a month end close, and
yeah,
then they can go through that. And also, it's good for me because I can see where people are with
right. How
their
they've progressed along the way.
yeah. So I think checklists help a lot, and even written procedures on how to do something. Those can help as well.
That's a good point. Like actually documenting the process, right? Like actually documenting the process, documenting having that checklist. There is a great book about managing by checklists, and it makes an analogy in business about how like pilots, right? Like pilots who have flown, thousands of flights still start off every single flight with a checklist. They go
Yeah.
through every single thing, checking every single thing, and they go through. There's a whole process to it.
Hmm.
And they say it's not that they don't know how to do it. It's not that they haven't done it 1,000 times. It's because there's so many little things, and even one little thing that gets missed can exponentially affect something later. And so going through and making sure things are done really, really helps. It's right along the lines of what you're saying. That's a
Yeah.
really good point.
Well, and I think also we, all forget things from time to time. So
Yeah,
having a checklist just helps you stay on track.
absolutely. What have you found in some of the leaders that were really good in your experience? What have you found some of the key characteristics they had?
I think they trusted the people that worked for them, and they set the expectations of what is required, and then they kind of let you go with it, let you get done what you need to get done, and not get too much into the details, but um, just understanding what's needed, and then following up. If things don't look right, that's not what I meant, those kind of things. But I think, and a lot of times, letting you kind of struggle through it. So here's the project, and here's what I need to get done. And do you need help with that? Yes or no. But sometimes just struggling through it on your own, you learn the best because now you got to figure out where that number came from or this number came from. And I think it cements it in your mind more when you do that. So I think, leaders that can trust their people really to get the things done that they need to get done.
Yeah, that's a really those are great points. When you think about what you said earlier about communication up front, right? Clarity in communication, and then trust, because so many, and there's a lot of thought out there about the difference between leaders and managers, right? like managers might be in a position of authority, but they're not inspiring anybody to do anything. And they're really just micromanaging, or they're just kind of, they're not trusting of their people.
Yeah.
Whereas a leader will inspire people to do stuff. And then in turn, people don't just work for the paycheck, they work with blood, sweat, and tears because they
Yeah.
believe in the cause and they believe in the mission and they believe in their leader. And then they'll do whatever it takes to get something done because they've been trusted to do it,
Hmm.
right? And then offering help along the way.
Yeah. Um, there's another thing I think is important for a leader too is leading by example,
Yeah,
versus just telling people, I need you to do this, this, and this, but you're not doing it yourself. You lose credibility. So I feel like you
yeah.
have to kind of practice what you preach, so to
Hmm.
speak, and be the example of what you would like your people to be like.
Yeah, it demonstrates integrity. It shows, look, when the door is closed and nobody's looking, I'm still doing the right thing, and I'm doing it because it is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And then other people below them in the hierarchy see that,
Hmm.
and then they don't feel they're they feel good about doing it, right?
Right.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That's really good. That's excellent. So what's on your agenda? What do you have coming up in the next few months? Do you guys have initiatives that you're doing? Any massive projects? Is that in even before you answer that, like, I assume your busy time is now, right? I assume your busy time is in the next few months because we're in spring heading into summer. Um, what do you guys do during wintertime? Do you guys work on interior projects? Do you schedule them like that? I was just curious.
We do lay off a number of the workforce during
During
January and
winter.
February. Um, and they all know it, they all plan for it.
Yeah, it's common in
So,
the industry. Yeah.
yeah. But then everybody else that's not laid off, I mean, for the accounting team, it doesn't slow down. We don't really see much change. In the field, there's just less jobs for them to do, and sometimes there's internal work that needs to get done, and they'll work on, we built a new garage recently, so people may have been pulled to work on the garage, and things like that. But there's plenty to do. It seems like it doesn't slow down all that much. Uh,
Oh, okay. Interesting.
um, yeah.
Hey, when we think about the intersection of finance and construction and technology, um, how have you seen technology change the finance practice, kind of the accounting practice over the years? Has there been much change? Is there more maybe business intelligence?
Well, I think what I've seen change is um, the type of internal controls you can have,
Hmm.
because in the past, everything was on paper. So you do a reconciliation, this person signs off, that person signs off. Well, now that reconciliation might be 100% within your software. And there's no place to say, well, yeah, this person looked at this person looked at it. And so when the auditors come in, it's a little more of a challenge, I think, auditing all those electronic records versus auditing, pulling out 20 invoices for them to look at or something like that. So I think that has made a big difference. And even in the last audit we had, they were asking for some type of paper approval because they couldn't see
Oh,
it in the system. So
really?
um, that's been a big change. And now our accounts payable invoices, they come in by email and they go right into our system and it reads the invoice. And then the AP person just has to go in and code the invoice and double check the information. So it saves a bunch of steps in doing that process. So it's streamlined a lot of things, being a little more technology savvy. it's just the other side of it is the fraud that seems to be
Yeah, with
prevalent.
convenience comes risk, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's part of the challenge,
Hmm.
you know. I mean, 20 years ago we had two versions of our world. We had computers in the office, right? Or even 25, 30 years ago, we had computers in the office and they were helpful.
Yeah.
But if they went down, we still had paper versions of everything and we were still able to function, right?
Hmm.
And now we've all, in the last 10 years or so, every single organization we come across, we're more reliant on the technology than ever before. Like
Yeah.
all of our, like everything is in the programs that we use. Like there isn't a paper version of it,
Right.
um, right? Or not a complete version, maybe.
Hmm.
And then that just makes us more susceptible to fraud and cybercrime,
Yeah.
which cybercrime is just a really broad term for e-fraud, basically, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean your division, I imagine, is targeted as much as any others in an organization because when the money's coming in and the money's going out, they always follow the money, and so they want
Yeah.
to leverage social engineering. They're very convincing. They know what to say to get people to do what they want, and so
Hmm.
it's it it's quite it's it's a new age of risk, and
Yeah.
you know I think we're all searching for something we could just install and be
Hmm.
secure, right? And it
Yeah.
does not exist, right? It just doesn't come out of a product. So
Well, it seems like too with technology is great and all, but if you don't have processes around it,
right,
then it doesn't do you any good. You can have this wonderful piece of software, but if you don't know how to use it properly or don't know how to get your um, information to the right person to be able to enter it, then that's no good either. So it's like you have
right,
to think about what processes within my company do I need before I implement this piece of software.
right.
And
And then what checks and balances can you put around that software, right?
yes,
Like what process, even though we're using the software, how can we put a check and balance in our human process around it before we rely totally on it?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, we have some things that we do now that we probably didn't have to do in the past. We have to we pay people through ACH. When you pay
right.
people through ACH, you have to request their bank information to do that, and that's where we've seen a lot of difficulty. And so we have a policy in place that if anyone sends us bank information, we're going to call from our version of contacts, we're going to call the person we know and ask if that information is correct. And that has been helpful. It's caught a number of times where
I'm
somebody
telling
said,
you,
no, I didn't
that's the
send that to you.
process. Yeah, we talk about that in our live security awareness trainings that we provide, like all the time, because we go, this costs you nothing, right? It's not a tool, it's not a fancy technology, it is a process. But if you do it, it will, so many of the incidents that we see involve that, right? Like a trusted vendor. We do work for this subcontractor or whatever, and we get an email uh, or a call, right, that sounds just like our rep from them. And they said, hey, we just changed banks. We need to change our wiring instructions. And they send us over an email with a new um, form, and it looks exactly like them. And the email looks exactly like them. But when you actually pause and follow the process and call the people that that you've talked to before, they're like, we have no idea who they are. We don't know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah. And we've
and so
caught it.
you've caught that several times already.
Yeah. I mean, I've had instances myself where my email gets intercepted by somebody. They change the
Yeah,
information and send it on as if it's from me, but it's not,
right.
you know. So I always hope that the people that we have to send that to will do the same kind of verification that we do on our side, but
Yeah.
that's not always the case.
Yeah, the FBI's new threat report just came out, and it said the number one fastest growth is third party risk. And that's what we're talking about. That's what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you have more control and you can put these policies in place for your group. But we do business with a lot of different groups, right?
Yeah.
Like we have a lot of different subcontractors. We might not even think of them as subcontractors, but somebody may clean the office, somebody may do HVAC, somebody may do marketing, somebody may do this, do that, and all of these are contractors, right? And
Yeah.
what kind of policies do they have? Because if they don't, and a lot of them don't, it's increasing our risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
It's really the new age of kind of understanding an organization's risk overall, and we can never avoid it, but it's just a matter of we have to know what the risk is and then decide what's our risk appetite. Are we okay with it? And if we're not, create policies and procedures to lower that part of it. And this
Mm-hmm.
one might be risky, but we're okay with it because there's other benefits, right? And
Right.
just go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've talked about that often with insurance and things like that. And,
Yeah.
what is the risk tolerance of the owners here
Yeah.
versus how much we're going to get in insurance or things like
Right.
that. It's
That's
just,
exactly right.
yeah, a risk. Yeah. You just have to kind of have a plan, I guess, for what you're
Yeah.
willing to accept as risk.
Yeah. And overall, I find organizations that have been around a while have a lower risk tolerance. Like they want to protect what they've built because they've spent longer doing it. And a
Yeah.
fifth generation company, you know,
Mhm.
is not gonna be torpedoed, right? Like they're like, we have gone through a lot of recessions and everything else, and we're still standing. We're not gonna let these guys ruin it, right?
Yeah.
And compared to like startups, a lot of startups that we talk to are like, just it's all about growth. We'll worry about risk later. Yeah, right. We don't.
Right.
They're just about building it in the first place, just to get that first version of something. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's phenomenal. That's great. So what's on the agenda? Or do you have conferences that you guys are going to? Do you anything coming up in the next year? Anything exciting?
Well, I go to a couple conferences. I go to the CFMA conference each
Mm-hmm.
year.
Yep.
That's the Construction Financial Managers Association.
Mm-hmm.
And that's coming up here in about a week or two,
Oh,
um,
great.
right here in May. So I'll be going to that. And then I usually go to the software conference for our computer software. And that's
Wow.
usually in November.
Yeah. Do you find them helpful?
I do, yes.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
because
I,
you're able to see other like-minded people,
yes,
and some of them have already tried something. Like you might see something that's cool, and then you talk to a couple of people. We tried it. It wasn't as good as they say it was. Or have you heard of this one? This is really useful, right?
yeah.
I always get a lot of value out of those sessions.
Yeah, and I also am in a couple peer groups, which I think are
That
very
is really
helpful.
good. Yeah.
With the CFMA, I'm just starting into a new peer group there, and it's people all around the country that are in different areas, so you can talk a little more freely because you're not talking to your competitors. So I'm just getting started with that one, and then there is a user group for the software, and I go to that every quarter, and that's coming up too here in next week actually. So,
That's
and
phenomenal.
I get a lot out of those type of groups where you can talk to people who are actually using what you're or doing what you're doing, and you can learn from some of the things they've got figured out, and maybe help somebody with something you know about.
Yeah, I mean, because there's so many different paths an organization can take, and by talking to peer groups and people that might have done something like, for example, if you're thinking of a new software or an addition or something, right, and a bolt on to your software, and it sounds really good, at least from the sales team, because they're always like they painted this beautiful, perfect picture in your mind. You're like, this sounds really good, but then you can talk to a peer group and be like, we just ran it for 6 months, or we've been running it for a couple of years, and we really have found a lot of value in it. Well, now you know it's real, right?
Right.
Like you're like they're doing something relatively similar to what you would be using it for, and it saves you time. Or it's the opposite, and now you just dodged a bullet that could have cost you a lot of time and some money. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of benefit to gaining peer group insight.
Yeah. Yeah, I really believe in them because there's been times when I'm struggling with something like around accounting, and I'm the only CPA here at Prus. Um, so others have varying degrees of accounting experience, but to go talk to other CFOs or other CPA people that I can say, well, this is what I'm running into at my company with this. Do you have any suggestions on how to handle that? And sometimes you put those things out to the group and you get a bunch of different ideas, things you didn't
Yeah.
think of before.
Yep.
And I just find those really, really helpful.
Absolutely. That's excellent. Well, Gretchen, thank you so much for your time today. Um, uh, I really, really uh, appreciate understanding from all the different elements of an organization, like how they address leadership, how they view, risk, and how they've kind of gone through the trajectory of their careers. Because there's a lot of different people from in a lot of different departments that listen to us, and so I really, really appreciate your insight.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks. I appreciate it, and thanks everybody for listening.